see the letter that you mentioned, John, which with regard to Nevada, and this is really the first piece of any, which is that they say 3,062 voters who moved from Nevada before the election.
Folks, just to let you know, we're getting closer. We've started our YouTube streaming, so just hold tight. We're almost there. Again, we have a large quantity of people coming on board, over 80, close to 100. So just hold tight. Okay, we are live on YouTube.
Well, thank you, Chair Susan Duffy. And
I think we're still in a hold. If you can just wait, Mr. Rosenberg, we want to make sure we do hear your comments. So they will unmute you when we are ready. Thank you.
We will begin public comments now. A few speaker notes to keep in mind. All the microphones are currently muted. When your name is called, you will receive an invitation to unmute. Secondly, please begin your comments with your name and city. When I call each speaker, I will also indicate who's next in line so that person can be prepared. So with that, our first speaker is Robert Rosenberg, and William Dorsett will follow. Mr. Rosenberg, we're ready for your comment.
thank you. I'm Robert Rosenberg from Manhattan, Kansas. I'm an Evergy customer and co-director of the Flint Hills Renewable Energy and Efficiency Co-op. Thank you, Chair Susan Duffy and Commissioners Dwight Keene and Andrew French for having this public hearing. Evergy has proposed two plans, and I intend to express why I think that neither of them are acceptable. The grid access fee of $3 per kilowatt is just another discriminatory fee that impacts solar customers only. So it's bound to be challenged in court, which invites litigation that will just waste time and ratepayers' money, since Evergy has to use ratepayers' money to pay for their legal fees. The second plan, the $35 minimum fee, well, you know, I'm sure all rate plans have winners and losers, but the $35 minimum fee creates a cross subsidy that that punishes the miserly energy user and doesn't affect the large user, the profligate user of electricity. For example, a large user of electricity may see a bill of $150 a month, and they may get a lot of solar panels and reduce that bill to $50 a month, but they're still above the $35 fee or $35 minimum bill, which means that they're unaffected by the policy. But then somebody maybe like me who doesn't use that much electricity and has a bill of about $30 and puts up a few solar panels to further reduce my carbon footprint, my bill that might be $30 I'd like it to be the base rate of $14.50, so I got a few solar panels, but it's going to be $35. Now, if some people pay more than they should and other people are unaffected, it's a cross subsidy. Only this kind of cross subsidy is backwards because the low income, the people who live in small houses, the energy conscious people, user conscious, environmentally conscious people are punished, whereas the large user of electricity is unaffected. And I have 28 more seconds. Well, since I have 28 more seconds, I'll mention that I know that the commission uses studies that that are more like propaganda. Anyway, let's rely on the AECOM study that is peer reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm informed that Mr. Dorsett is not currently on the call yet, so we will go to Michelle Milburn, followed by Markhorst. Michelle, are you ready?
I am. Thank you. My name is Michelle Milburn. I'm in Mission, Kansas. I'm a board certified energy professional, solar owner, and I happen to also be an Evergy shareholder. Policy states that no utility provider shall consider the use of any renewable energy source as a basis for establishing higher rates or charges for any service or commodity sold to such customer. The proposed grid access fee is just another discriminatory rate, just like the demand rate. The proposed minimum bill, in addition to discouraging energy efficiency, it will ultimately create other cost shifts and disproportionately burden our most vulnerable Kansans. To paraphrase our Supreme Court, we can move past the alleged free rider issue with relative ease because the policy favoring customers who generate a portion of their own energy is cemented in Kansas law. One would be justified in wondering whether the alleged free rider problem is a feature of the system rather than a bug. The Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory released an independent national study in 2017, which found net metering cost shifts were so insignificant, they would not make a quantifiable impact on other ratepayers until the net metering capacity reaches 10% of utility demand. As of 2019, Kansas capacity across the state of all classes is only 0.2%. At that installation rate, it will take 50 years to reach the Kansas 1% cap, which is the mechanism that already exists to protect ratepayers against a cost shift. In 2013, the Energy Institute published a report, which was The Disruptive Challenges, which creates the national narrative suggesting energy efficiency and DG was the greatest threat to investor profit stability, blaming cost shifting for increasing rates, which would cause a death spiraling trend towards even more energy efficiency and distributed generation use. Blaming distributed generation customers will not stop rate increases or that trend. Evergy publicly assumes a 4% average annual increase in rates that will push our 11 cents per kilowatt hour rate to 29 cents in the next 25 years. Their 200-year-old business model is what makes energy efficiency and distributed generation more attractive. So, what if Westar had not spent a decade and hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting net metering, portfolio standards, system size, segregating our ratepayers, rewriting legislation, dragging ratepayers through court proceedings and appeals, all the while shifting their legal costs to ratepayers, which far exceeds any shift by distributed generation users? Those are the real free riders in this system. And what if Kansas clean energy job growth
Hi, my name is Markhorst. I live in Yoder, Kansas, and I'm the owner of King Solar. We're a solar energy installation contractor. I have 3 points tonight. One is that Evergy is asking essentially to be able to recover their cost to serve. Some of my solar comrades might disagree with me, but I think that it is their right to recover that cost of service. But I would ask for a third-party study of what is actually the cost of service, and in that be the benefit of what can distributed generation do for Evergy. So our company is a member of the SunSpec Alliance, which is a group of industry professionals that is working on a communications protocol that would allow distributed energy to benefit the grid, like calling up battery storage for grid demand, curtailing production of inverters to deal with some of those peaks in production. So I think there is a benefit to solar, but I do think Evergy does have the right to recover their cost of service. Point number 2, grandfathering. In the last couple of rate cases, you guys have promised my customers the right to have their investments be protected. Evergy is granted the right to protect their investments. Whenever they invest in a new technology, you guys let them raise or maintain rates to be able to protect that. You've promised my customers, and even myself, I have a DG system from back in 2014. You've promised my wife and I the ability to recover that investment. Please don't take that away from us. And that is to be expired in 2030, which is totally cool. Give us a couple more years. Don't pull the rug out from under us, please. Point number 3, that the rate that is being proposed is on the DC capacity. That can't happen. There's a couple reasons that can't happen. But first of all, I want to say you're looking at $3 per kilowatt. As I work with other utilities around the state, I think $1 to $2 per kilowatt would be more realistic to recover the cost of service, which would end up being a $25 to $35 per month per customer, a cost of service recovery, which I think is pretty realistic. If it's on DC, it just doesn't make sense. If I have a customer that has an east-west roof like this, they need about 20% more solar panels than a customer that has a south-facing roof like this. Why should they pay 20% more of their cost of service to produce the same number of kilowatt hours as somebody that has an east-west roof? The Evergy grid is an AC grid. Why would they be allowed to charge a fee that is DC? It doesn't have anything to do with how we interact with their grid. Solar panels degrade over time. Like 10 years from now, my panels won't be producing at their rated capacity. Why would they be able to charge me a fee based on my brand new capacity when that's not what I'm producing today? Currently, Evergy has the ability to measure AC output. Why wouldn't it be a peak AC charge? Their generation meters can do that. Evergy's own DG tariff specifically mentions the AC net export capacity. Why can they do that and we can't? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Thad Holcomb. Mr. Holcomb, are you on the call? Okay, we'll move on. Representatives.
I'm on the call.
I'm sorry. I was a little too quick to move on. Please go ahead and provide your comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm Thad Holcomb. I'm speaking as a moderator of the Lawrence Ecology Team's United Sustainability in Lawrence, and we are an interfaith network of Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, Protestant faith communities in Lawrence, and we oppose the Evergy proposals. It's not just and reasonable, as is suggested as a guideline for the KCC to make a decision. Now, this opposition is based on the following. The Evergy proposals do not support, encourage, an increasing need for renewable energy, and that what Evergy representatives suggest as being fair solar rates are in fact not just. Now, being fair is not the same as being just in our estimation. In contrast, for these proposals, as far as being fair, we think an adequate way to define the proposed rates as good is to look at another way. We suggest that they be evaluated as being not being just, but also include fairness with us. And for us, justice in the case of Evergy would be to promote what is the best way to produce energy as to do the least amount of damage to an earth already needing to heal from the consequences of producing non-renewable energy. Also, the suggested rates do not meet the test of justice when lower income utility users and those who practice efficiency in their electric uses are penalized. Evergy's definition of fairness is based largely on monetary analysis and protecting the investment of Evergy stockholders. And we prefer to have another understanding of justice to do that. Evergy customers, all of us, subsidize the inefficient and costly coal plants. Again, in order to meet the call for sufficient profit to shareholders, and why should we add the same thing in terms of an unjust rate on solar? Some would suggest that our proposing such a line of reason that delineates what is fair and is just a matter of tilting at windmills, or even better, typical religious words that do not have any practical use. We as a network of faith communities are constantly reminded that within the diversity of our faith communities, we have in our writings, our history, there's a common message: to be suspicious of affluence gained through the extraction of wealth from those of less affluence, those of low income. We are suspicious of this being the case given the consequences of these rates being proposed by Evergy. So we encourage a transition to renewable energy production for the sake of all. And we suggest that increasing residential solar and solar farms is one way. Especially, we ask that utilities produce energy. If they're a public utility, pursue that same goal, even if it means a smaller profit to shareholders. The proposal put forth by Evergy does not encourage this transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holcomb. Our next speaker is Representative Stephanie Clayton, and she is followed by Scott White. Representative Clayton, are you on the call? Scott White, are you on the call?
I am.
Why don't we go ahead and have you give your comment?
Thank you. My name is Scott White of Lawrence, and I work with Cromwell Solar. As a solar installation company, we oppose both of the proposed rate changes for residential DG customers, as presented by Evergy. We believe the main proposal will harm future development of solar for residential consumers, and the alternate will punish existing customers who invested in solar under far different rules. We do not see how the grid access charge is any less discriminatory to these customers than the demand charges the Kansas Supreme Court struck down in April. Evergy's Bradley Lutz testified that customers without installed generation have an installed DG capacity of 0, resulting in a monthly grid access charge of 0. And that's a quote. Well, of course, multiply anything by 0, you get 0. So just because Evergy places the grid access charge in a tariff that applies to all residential customers does not in and of itself make it fair, because this one charge only applies to customers who have solar. Therefore, by definition, it's discriminatory. The minimum bill as it pertains to DG customers isn't so bad for residential consumers with larger loads if the solar array can be designed with the minimum bill in mind. But that's not going to be the case with these being retroactive. Now, in such a case, the system would be designed smaller than it might otherwise be, so that it would not offset those last 278 kilowatt hours that will be billed regardless. For residential consumers with smaller or energy efficient loads, it's going to be much more problematic with a minimum bill, as smaller solar arrays have a higher unit cost because of things that are consistent with every project, such as permits and design as such. Now, Evergy wants to make these tariffs retroactive to all existing residential DG customers, which we see as inherently unfair to those who made the financial decision to install solar at their own expense. The grid access charge will impact everyone detrimentally, while a minimum bill will have a larger impact on some of our earliest adopters, those who invested in solar before July 2014, when the net metering statute allowed for excess solar production to be rolled over from month to month for up to a year. Their systems tended to be larger, and the solar offset more of their consumption. Finally, we find it both ironic and disappointing that over the years, the Commission has allowed the utility to regularly make changes to the net metering policy, which goes against the will of the legislature, who passed the original net metering bill in 2019 to incentivize rooftop solar. The incentivization has worked, and we hope that you will allow it to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Alice Bean, followed by Chris Rickerson. Alice, are you on the call?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Alice Bean and I live in Lawrence. Thank you for letting me speak today about both the proposed rate structures, which I oppose. I hope you will find another alternative rate structure. I support the advancement of all clean renewable energy sources as well as the promotion of energy efficiency. This proposal seems designed to do the opposite. It discourages residential solar generation in Kansas by penalizing those who have installed solar panels. In contrast to the proposed Kansas rate, our Evergy neighbors in Missouri are more forward-thinking and enjoy incentives to improve their renewable energy generation. The proposed grid access fee of $3 per installed kilowatt is more than 3 times higher than any other state. Currently, the highest fee is in Arizona with 93 cents per installed kilowatt. The fee essentially negates any fiscal benefits net metering provides to consumers with solar panels and instead allows the utility to profit off of individual privately funded solar installations. A third-party rate study is called for to determine whether a grid access fee is actually necessary and equitable and what this fee should be. The alternative $35 per month fee is regressive and seems almost punitive to those least able to pay it. It almost seems designed to pit those without solar against those who have chosen to use solar. Additionally, it does not promote energy efficiency, but instead promotes energy waste. Before installing solar panels on my home, I worked hard to improve energy efficiency. Even without the solar panels, my bill would be less than $35 per month for several months of the year. I also find it troubling that these policies would apply to all solar customers with no regard to when their system was installed, which seems very discriminatory. It is also not right that some solar customers are still being charged the demand charges that were ruled unconstitutional more than 6 months ago by the Kansas Supreme Court. These excess fees should be refunded. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Chris Rickerson. Is Chris Rickerson on the call? Okay, we'll move ahead to Dean Carrico, followed by Sean Hawkins. Dean? Okay, Sean Hawkins.
Dean is there. We can see him. He's not unmuted.
Are you there?
Yes, please go ahead with your comment. Sorry for the delay.
Well, listen, most everybody's already commented on everything I would probably want to say. I do know I have my own solar array in the yard, and but I've noticed something here that no one else has probably noticed is I'm producing more electricity than I have in my previous years. And for some reason, I'm still paying an electric bill. You know, I've kept track of how much I'm producing and how much the net metering is saying I'm producing. And I picked one of the years where I used the most electricity in the past 15 years. And I'm wondering where that electricity is going. You know, if you want to charge me more for, you know, my connection fee, you know, I'd like to know where my extra energy is going. You're not only that's leaving me, I'm not even getting credit for it, but you also want to charge me more money to keep hooked up to the grid. You know, I don't really have any much more to say than that. That I don't know why no one else has brought this up. Maybe they don't keep track. I don't know. But you know, according to my standards, there's I'm missing probably 3,000 kilowatt hours from last year.
Thank you for your comment. Brian Adamson. David Alexander. Dwayne Herman. Faith Martin.
Okay, I'm here. It took me a while to get the message. My name is Dwayne Herman, Topeka. My children are no longer surprised when dish soap in my kitchen becomes solid. That means it's winter at Dad's. I don't heat the kitchen much. I don't heat the bedrooms at all. The one room I do heat, I keep at 60 degrees or colder. My income is limited to $24,000 a year. I need my money for medicine, insurance, and food. From March to January, I use gas only for cooking. Most of what I pay is some kind of administrative charge or taxes, not gas. This rate increase to $35 a month will raise my bill by 1/3. My income can't be increased. My combination of dyslexia, ADHD, cyclothymia, anxiety disorder, and PTSD prevents me from being able to have a job, so I'm stuck. I think those who want the rate increase should have to live at $24,000 a year also. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Herman. The next speaker on our list is Faith Martin.
Faith Martin, Wichita, Kansas. We are looking to add solar to our home to decrease our carbon footprint and to do our part to help combat climate change in Kansas. The proposed changes are making it increasingly difficult in an unfair, non-competitive market for homeowners to choose renewable energy. Evergy is worried that they'll be selling a lot less power to people, so they made up a story about how solar users aren't paying their fair share. The new rate design needs to be redesigned. The $3 rate is discriminatory for distributed generation customers and needs to be reevaluated to create a fair market rate closer to the demand required by each customer. The all or nothing rate increases as an alternative rate, or as an alternative is neither fair or just to all customers or self-generating customers. It also disproportionately affects our most vulnerable Kansans during an already insecure economic environment.
Hey, thank you for your comment. We'll now go to Representative Stephanie Clayton.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Representative Stephanie Clayton. I represent parts of Overland Park, Leawood, and Prairie Village, and I have heard from my constituents about this issue for a number of years. A lot of families in my district are facing barriers to the installation of solar panels and their rights to install their own energy source. And I think it's important to stand with them and also to bring up the fact that the utility provider just continues to remove choice from families. And I felt that the demand charge was an unfair discriminatory fee. I think that it moves now to transition to a grid access fee or a minimum bill kind of serve to hurt ratepayers as opposed to help them, which again, as a previous speaker mentioned, this is particularly problematic during these difficult economic times when I think we're all looking for ways to save at home when we're all suffering due to the economic situation. Now, so I was against the demand charge for being difficult to understand and difficult to manage, and I thought it was an unnecessary restriction on the less than 1% of generation that's already being produced from solar. And so since the legislature has already acted to limit net metering to only 1% of the electricity generated, I think we shouldn't impose any additional handcuffs on the solar generation. And so I'd like to argue that the work to limit solar disruption of the utility business model was done already in changes made to the net metering laws in 2014. So I think other people will probably speak to this issue much better than I can, but I wanted to take time to be on here and advocate. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much for your comment. Our next speaker is David Heisen. We'll give David a chance to unmute.
I'm David Heisen from Spring Hill, Kansas. And I'm not sure if people can hear me here, but I don't have a whole lot to say other than is this a minimum increase to help with Terry Bassum's compensation package of $6.4 million, I believe 1.1 million in bonuses this year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Heisen. Our next speaker will be James Chivers, and he will be followed by James Wigner. So Mr. Chivers, are you on the call? If you could unmute, please. Okay, it doesn't appear that he is on the call. James Wigner, I understand, is also not. So we will move down to Andrea Prim. Andrea? How about Deborah Crope? Deborah? We'll go ahead and move down the list to Kate Gretchenrieder. I apologize for that pronunciation. I'm sure it's not correct.
My name is Kate Gutschenreiter, and I live out in rural Eudora, Kansas. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my opposition to both of Evergy's current rate change proposals. My husband and I are middle-income Kansans with small children, and we decided to install solar panels 2 years ago because we wanted to put into action our values of promoting clean energy and conservation. So it's not a frivolous investment. We carefully researched the costs and benefits of the solar policies in Kansas before deciding to go solar, as well as keep our house all electric when our heat pump needed to be replaced. That's why Evergy's ongoing attacks on residential solar power in the state feel very frustrating. There are 3 points I'd like to make about this proposal. First, characterizing solar generating residential customers as economic free riders is misleading and frankly insulting. That term claims we impose costs on the system without providing any benefits. Replacing fossil fuels with clean energy is an indisputable public good with clear benefit. And all of the capital investment and maintenance for these solar panels fall on the owners. This is at best a long-term break-even investment with the current rate structure, not a money-making enterprise. Our motivation for this investment is conservation. We pay the customer charge, which Evergy's own website defines as to cover costs of metering, billing, collection, and customer service incurred in servicing your account, as well as paying for the energy in excess of our production. In the winter, our cost is hundreds of dollars. And any excess energy that we produce beyond our own consumption in the summer months is sold to Evergy for a fraction of what they resell it to other customers for. Therefore, we're not only reducing the emissions of our own usage, but others too at no extra cost to those customers and no capital cost to Evergy. My second point is that we as customers have no control over how Evergy produces its power. Their production mix is currently 66% fossil fuels, and we have no choice of another cleaner supplier to purchase our electricity from. So generating our own solar power and supplying the excess to the grid is a direct, efficient, and impactful way to help reduce emissions. And finally, as several people have already pointed out, the state of Kansas has already passed legislation, and the Supreme Court has confirmed that they intend for solar generation to be incentivized, not discouraged, and the current proposal is illegal. Evergy's assertion that the only alternative to solar generation surcharge is to force low-income and low-use customers to pay for energy that they're not consuming is ridiculous and not a good faith solution to their claimed issue. Rather, this is clearly intended to further distort the optics of this discussion. We would support an unbiased, transparent third-party rate analysis to determine what, if any, burden DG customers place on the utility relative to what we are already paying monetarily and contributing ecologically in the ways I've already mentioned. Evergy claims in their proposal that my own 9-kilowatt solar array incurs cost of $60 per month to them beyond the charges that they already collect from us. To make this claim without sharing any substantiation is not acceptable. Contrary to Evergy's marketing of themselves as being in favor of clean energy, their proposal will significantly change the economics of solar generation and discourage its adoption, which seems to be their true goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. We appreciate your comment. The next speaker on our list is Scott Nyman, and we'll pause for a minute, make sure he has time to unmute.
Hello, thank you. My name is Colonel Scott Nauman. I'm from Lansing, Kansas. Currently a DG customer, and I'll tell you I'm fairly familiar with the engineering involved, having studied electrical engineering at West Point. I will quickly address the two cost proposals. First, The grid access fee proposal is clearly contrary to Kansas law. The proposal simply replaces one fee only paid by DG customers with another fee, again, only paid by DG customers. Claiming the fee will be charged to all, but non-DG customers will pay nothing is a ruse at best. Kansas law states no utility shall consider the use of renewable energy source by a customer as a basis for establishing higher rates or charges. It goes without saying, if a non-DG customer is paying zero, then by definition, the DG customer is paying a higher charge, which is prohibited by law. Furthermore, the proposal increases the charge based on the size of the DG system. That is clearly designed purely to dissuade Kansas residents from installing a larger system, also contrary to the intent of Kansas law as clearly laid out by the Kansas Supreme Court. Second item is the minimum bill. Kansas law does allow a minimum bill, but only in so much as it is a fair amount based on the economics involved. Evergy alleges DG customers are free riders and that Evergy must recoup the capital expense they incur to create the grid. Should be noted, Supreme Court did not actually accept that argument and continue to use the term alleged free riding. They do this for good reason. I'll give you one brief example why. Last month, as a DG customer, I produced an excess of 632 kilowatts of electricity. I returned that to Evergy. They paid me $4.45 for this. They then charged other customers $46.45 for the same electricity, making a profit of $42. They made this profit while paying nothing for capital outlay. That begs the question, who is the true free rider in this economic equation? I'd submit to you it is not the DG customer, but Evergy making a tenfold profit off of the DG customer with zero capital outlay. When you consider this critical part of the economic equation, it's hard to justify any minimum bill for DG customers as being fair and reasonable, a requirement which is set by Kansas law and the Kansas Supreme Court recent ruling, let alone a bill of $35. In the example I just gave, last month I would have paid $35 for the privilege of providing Evergy the ability to make an additional $46 off of the system that I paid for, while they paid nothing in capital outlay. Again, who is the true free rider in this equation? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is William Dorsett, and following William will be Dan Jennings. William Dorsett?
Yes. My name is William Dorsett. I'm from Manhattan, and I'm a co-director of the Flint Hills Solar Cooperative. First, I want to say thanks to the Corporation Commission for allowing these public hearings. One of the first things that we need to understand is that solar photovoltaics are peak load power. I've got a chart here. Maybe you can see it. It shows the relationship of the Evergy system load profile with the solar generation profile superimposed on it. It shows that, and if I put the prices of the various periods of time on over those parts, one of the things that Evergy does not include in any of its hearings is that there's also an intermediate peak load that starts at 10 in the morning and goes until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So those prices show that we are not free riders, but we're generating power that is far more valuable than the ordinary power on the grid. So this is the basis of what we're contending. The AECOM report that just came out is particularly timely. First, it documents the savings from rooftop solar to the transmission and distribution grid. This is confirmed by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, which finds savings from generating peak load where it's used can reduce capacity on those lines by 30%. Evergy is now asking for $5.1 billion to replace the transmission and distribution system. If we can defer these investments and size the system closer to the base load through distributed peak load generation, we can save all ratepayers a very significant part of that $5.1 billion. Number two is that Kansas weather data verifies that we have 94% of all of our critical peak days are cloudless. The sun may be intermittent, but it is very reliable on those days. Third, a study by the Energy Institute from the University of Texas said that we can add 15% of PV capacity with no additional system upgrades or cost. So the 1% cap that's been put on Kansas solar customers is completely artificial. So it's far too early to preclude distributed solar PV by making it more expensive. We think that you should certainly defer this whole hearing until we have a better chance to study not.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsett. Our next speaker is Dan Jennings, and he will be followed by Deb Bert. Mr. Jennings?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, no camera. Dan Jennings from Lawrence, Kansas, and I'd like to thank the panel for their time and effort to put this on. Very informative. I agree with everything that has been said. I'm a small user. I have a small solar system, and my electric bill over the last year, I've had 2 months that was over $35. The rest of the months has been under $35, an average of $28.75 a month for the year. This seems very, very unfair, very discriminatory. I try to follow their guidelines on peak usage and non-peak usage times to save electricity. And I have had their truck parked out across the street of my house several times when I happened to be home, and I don't know what they were there. They were there for 15 to 20 minutes, and I don't know why. I did see them come once around the house to my meter, I guess check to see if it was operating properly or whatever. I live on a limited income, and I bought the solar panels on my own. They were used and was able to install them. So it's a low budget, but up to code with an electrician that installed them. And a rate increase like that to me is going to be devastating. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. The next person on our list is Deb Bert, and she is followed by Jacob Goldman. Deb, are you on the line or on the call? Deb Bert. Okay, she must not be joining us, so we will go down to Jacob Goldman. Do we have Jacob Goldman? Following Jacob, we have Chilton McLaughlin. Okay, Don Smith.
Hello, thanks for the opportunity. I think I'm going to be repeating a lot of things that's already been said, but I'll start anyway. I'm Don Smith. I live in Emporia, Kansas. To say that the solar folks, they're not paying their share, I don't see how that's true. One thing, with all these extra fees, I think they need to do a cost benefit analysis and show us what is really the true cost. in a former life, I'm retired now. I help manage some solar or energy power, and the maintenance cost is a fixed cost. So what is the total cost really? But the questions that were asked before, producing excess, I do that. Probably 9 months out of the year, I don't have any. Where does it go? I think from my system, they're making money for me, and I pay a line charge for the privilege of giving them power. But when they take the power for me, it just kind of disappears. Them purposely targeting solar seems to me a predatory business practice. I think they try to, my experience, they try to discourage solar customers. They don't want you coming. The fees keep changing and changing. I installed my system years ago before a lot of this started, so thankfully for that. The net zero policy, that should, if that can be looked at, that is unfair. I think the way they do it, instead of doing it monthly, they ought to do it yearly. Seems that a lot of practices, I went and did some research, Kansas, the utilities, they do a lot of practices that most other states don't do. So I don't know if they're more progressive or we're just trying to be more conservative or safer. But I'm concerned about the excess energy, the grid access fee. It just zeroes in on solar and not everybody else. It's not really distributed. So if everybody's supposed to pay their fair share of the maintenance, well then why are we just targeting just the solar folks only? That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker on our list is Brenda Opott.
All right, I'm here.
Go ahead, thank you.
Let me get myself organized here. I'm Brenda Opott and I live in Manhattan, and I am obviously an Evergy customer, and I don't have skin in the game. I'm not a solar provider. I would like to be. And so when I saw the email, it immediately struck me as this is a lose-lose situation for the Kansas consumer. I didn't see how it was fair to ask low-income. I immediately thought about our seniors and our students who are really struggling and very budget-minded, and asking them to pay a minimum of $35 is probably not fair. And then I didn't understand, but I'm learning a lot by listening how this solar DG works and how customers are reimbursed for their energy production. It doesn't sound like it's a very fair method. So charging an additional $3 per kilowatt hour doesn't sound fair. So I went to my son, who actually has solar panels, and I discussed it with him. And he lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he said that Duke Energy is embracing alternative energy because it gives them more options and therefore better predictability when the price swings. And they even gave him a rebate that paid for 30% of his panel installation cost. So if the idea is to prevent the adoption of renewable energy by Kansas citizens, it's a losing battle. You can see that by listening tonight to the citizens of Kansas that are willing to spend their time fighting for this. And most companies and countries see the value in diversifying energy utilization. So some of the better solutions have been discussed tonight. I think that Kansas citizens probably have a lot to offer, and as far as finding good solutions. And that would just be a win-win situation if you could find something that is good for the consumer. And so maybe that the commission or Evergy needs to consult with some of these other companies that have successfully been able to work with their customers. And I encourage the adoption of alternative solutions to these problems. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next up is Malcolm Proudfit. and that he will be followed by Craig Stork. So Malcolm?
Yes, thank you. And good evening. I'd first like to thank Chairwoman Duffy, Commissioner Keene, and Commissioner French for the opportunity to deliver remarks this evening regarding this matter. My name is Malcolm Proudfit, and I reside in Lawrence, Kansas, and I am the CFO and COO at Good Energy Solutions. And I am here to represent our company, its 35 exemplary employees, and our many wonderful customers. Good Energy Solutions has built its success by assembling a team of top-tier solar and electrical professionals who are passionate about what they do and want to be in this industry. I am an economist by education and enjoy being in the solar business because the returns to customers are easily forecasted without a great deal of variance. There is great value in being the owner of one's own power generation, but this value to customers is being threatened and diminished in the face of policy propositions such as the ones we are discussing today. At Good Energy Solutions, we still see demand in Kansas, but we do not see much growth in demand for solar. All growth in demand for solar has been found out of state in Missouri, Nebraska, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, likely as a result of lesser restrictions in those states. We still see people taking the leap and going solar in Kansas, but we unfortunately see an equal number of our potential customers who choose not to go solar due to uncertainties caused by Evergy. Just today, a customer of ours named Louise Graham, a resident of Lawrence, Kansas, decided to back out of her contract with us because she did not want to be subjected to the grid access fees that are being proposed. These fees deter customers from installing solar, and they will restrict Good Energy Solutions' ability to grow and employ more hardworking Kansans in the future. Additionally, we feel that punishing low-income customers using a minimum billing structure, all because solar customers cannot be subjected to price discrimination, is simply wrong. The relationship between the renewables industry and the utility does not have to be adversarial in nature. I believe there is a solution out there, but this proposal being considered tonight is simply not the answer. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Craig Stork. Craig, are you on the, have you unmuted yourself? Craig Stork. Okay, we'll go on. John Shively.
Members of the commission, my name is John Shively. I live in Leavenworth, and I'm the director of the Office of Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation at the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth. As Catholic nuns, the community has a more than 150-year history of caring for people in poverty and a history of caring for the environment. And in service of that interest, we have several residences that utilize rooftop solar, as well as solar arrays on our campus. I want to address two explicit problems with the proposal before us today. The first is the so-called free rider problem. Evergy goes to great lengths in their expert testimony to demonstrate that solar customers, in their words, dramatically reduce the amount of power that they buy from Evergy, sort of the effect of having solar panels. However, any cost-benefit analysis must extend beyond narrow dollar definitions and recognize the necessity of encouraging programs that will mitigate the disastrous impacts of climate change. In Evergy's annual report, they were projected to use 17 million tons of coal in 2020. And while they may have the right to do that, public policy ought to encourage the adoption of renewables as soon as possible. Most importantly, for moral reasons, because we know the disastrous impacts that not switching to renewables will have on our climate. And we also know these impacts disproportionately impact people of color and people living in poverty. So in the face of incomplete information, particularly analyses that don't accurately cover, the economic, health, and environmental benefits of solar, I would urge the commission to reject new charges that may be imposed on customers with solar. generation to appropriately reflect the significant risks associated with long-term fossil fuel reliance. I think perhaps more troubling is this minimum bill proposal. As you've heard from a number of people, it's regressive. It unfairly impacts low-income Kansans. According to the Evergy's own testimony, the minimum bill requirement would mean a higher monthly bill for nearly 130,000 customers, making less than $25,000 a year, particularly during a time of economic contraction. Our sisters are interacting daily with Kansans who need help with utilities, rents, and other basic economic needs. To implement a minimum bill at this time seems to me unconscionable and morally wrong. Not to mention the economic effects of asking the poorest among us to help make up a supposed cost shift. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I want to let you know that I'm submitting further written comments, and I would encourage you to read those.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Eric Kellner. We'll give him a minute to log on.
Yes, hi. My name is Eric Kellner, a lifelong resident of Kansas. I've worked as an engineer in the power plant industry for 16 years. Additionally, over the past 10 years, I've built and maintained my own off-grid system at my residence, probably for security, for backup power, and for education. Regarding my power plant experience, I've seen firsthand and dealt with the issues that renewable generation has caused and will continue to cause on utility companies supplying electricity, which include a much higher cycling rate on power plants originally designed to be base loaded, and the need to keep spinning reserve up and running available to handle the load swings so that customers do not see any interruption in service. The power plant industry is one of the most, if not the most, capital intensive industries in existence, and keeping all this equipment running and available costs a lot of money. What has impacted Evergy's equipment the most over the past 10, 15 years has been the wind power expansion out in western Kansas and other surrounding states that have been installed without energy storage. I'll leave that why for later, but with more and more rooftop solar coming, it will only exacerbate Evergy's operating costs until decades down the line when energy storage has been added to the point where it makes a difference. Not only does daily cycling of any size of power plant and distribution equipment decrease life expectancy of this equipment, it also causes it to operate much less efficiently, further increasing costs. All this to say, I agree with Evergy's expert in that adding distributed renewable energy without energy storage adds to Evergy's cost of operation. However, the cost of our electricity, at least in eastern Kansas, has gone up substantially since the mid-2000s, already over 50% or more. A lot of that can be attributed to the many plant emission controls that were needed. Still, though, I would rather not provide Evergy any more resources than they already receive due to the huge increase lately. Therefore, I do not agree with Evergy's expert with the proposed solutions. In fact, I reject them, as he failed to mention an option that will benefit both Evergy and the customer without giving any more resources to Evergy. Instead, if a customer wants to install solar and connect to the grid, they should be required to install batteries or other forms of energy storage so that the grid usage during times when renewable energy generation decreases can be stabilized, therefore greatly reducing, if not eliminating, the need for Evergy to make up the difference. This kind of concept should be required for wind power utilities that utilities install as well, which is subsidized, but I'll say that for later. Additionally, the customer would still be able to power at least part of their house during a power outage, a win-win for everybody. In other words, it still requires the customer to pay to play with the grid, which is what Evergy wants, but both parties benefit instead of just one. To add to this, I propose that energy storage be at least 3 hours worth of usable capacity at the rated solar panel output installed. Also, Evergy will still work with the customer during the install, and they would confirm the customer does have battery storage and may even be there when testing is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Teresa Wilkie.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Eric. That was brilliant. All right, I want to say that Evergy, to propose a rate increase, has got to give a showing of a reason for the rate increase. This seems pretty apparent to be a protection of their carbon-based electricity generation, and also an intent to stifle competition with privately produced solar energy. So this seems like an antitrust problem to me on that front. Second, I'm very concerned about raising the rate. When the court said no, they couldn't do this just to solar generators, then they said, okay, well, we're going to do it to everyone. And this has an adverse impact on fixed income people and low income people, and it's highly offensive on that point. So that's my opinion.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Taryn Schraad. I may not have pronounced that correctly, but Taryn Schraad, S-C-H-R-A-A-D.
You did pronounce that correctly.
Thank you.
My name is Taryn Schraad, and I'm from Lecompton, Kansas, and I'm telling my solar energy story and speaking out in opposition to Evergy's rate proposals. My husband and I are a typical middle-class family. Over the last 15 years, we've paid an average of $150 per month for our electricity. In 2018, we installed our solar energy system and began generating self-generating our solar energy. Exactly 2 years ago, last month, we flipped the switch to solar. And since November of 2018, we have spent $1,270.50 on our electricity consumption. That's an average of $53 per month compared to the $150 per month that we spent in the previous years of our life. So wow, what did we do with that $97 windfall of money per month? Well, I assure you it was nothing sexy or luxurious. We started paying my mom's electric bill. She's in her 70s, a retired nurse, and lives on widow benefits. She lives in a 900-foot square home that's over 100 years old, and her electrical bills over the last 2 years were twice as much as ours. We put her on balanced bill pay, and we now cover a portion of her electrical bills and healthcare expenses. And this is middle-class reality. Electricity is a utility that's categorized as a necessity, just like water, sewage, and phone access. The electrical industry has known that solar and renewable energy was cheaper for the consumer and better for the environment. They also knew that every consumer relies on that electricity. Electrical utility costs are a significant chunk of a household budget. Evergy knew that there would be a day that consumers would want to lower their electrical costs, yet they didn't give us any options. All companies strategize and look at future consumer needs, access, and costs. Getting as much possible out of the consumer is part of Evergy's corporate strategy. And now Evergy wants this commission to approve a rate increase that deliberately targets a segment of customers who refuse to be caught up in this advantageous strategy for shareholders. Consumers now have a choice on how they consume electricity. This rate request increase is an unfair attack on electrical self-generation customers and Evergy's failure to offer consumers a choice and access to sustainable and renewable options. They've delayed in providing cost-effective electricity all these years, and now they want to penalize us, a margin of consumers who refuse to participate in this long drawn-out money grab. Families in America are tired of seeing other countries such as Germany and China and Iceland, who have upwards of 70% renewable energy access.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be David Wiebe, and he will be followed by Stanley Bergkamp. David, are you on the phone or on the call?
I am ready. My name is David Wiebe. I was born in Nebraska, but I've been living in Newton, Kansas for the last 46 years. So, and during that time, I have lived in an older house that I've weatherized and tried to make as efficient as possible, but I haven't ever put solar panels up or anything to that level. So I was very pleased about 15 years ago when I was able to go with Westar Wind and provide electricity from Westar using their new wind option. I paid a premium price for that, even though I knew that it was exactly the same electricity that was going to my neighbor's house. It was just something that was done as a part of accounting, and creative accounting is sometimes useful because it allowed me to vote with my little extra fee that yes, I wanted wind power, I wanted sustainable power. I've been looking at the global warming situation and carbon footprint since about 1980, and it's not getting any better. We need to shift more rapidly than all the politicians say. They say 2050, I say 2030, or else we're going to be in really deep doo-doo. But that's beside the point. My point is that 3 years ago, I broke ground to build a new house, a super insulated house running on a heat pump and solar panels on the roof. I also installed a 9.8 kilowatt battery because I knew that I wanted to shift the peak over to avoid the 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock slot that the previous rate structure had in it. That was a problem. Now, when I look at Evergy's annual report, they tell me how many customers they have, and 833, and all the numbers surrounding those. They tell me that the total amount that they would recover with the new rates is $208,000 from distributed generation customers. $208,000 means that everybody is paying, every other customer is paying 30 cents a year to subsidize my installation of $9,000 of solar panels and just under $6,000 for a battery. Now, I paid that assuming that it would become economically feasible. And under the new rate structure, all of a sudden it won't be economically feasible, even though I'm playing by all the rules that were in place when I installed it. And so that bothers me. And 30 cents a year, I just have to point out that the $208,000 is just a little bit under the $230,000 that Evergy donated to political action committees last year. So those same customers that are subsidizing my solar installation are also subsidizing political action by Evergy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Stanley Bergkamp, and he is followed by Rick Buden. Mr. Bergkamp?
Oh, there was one. Okay. My name is Stan Bergkamp, and I've been teaching physics and chemistry at Mays High School for 27 years. In July of 2016, I invested in a 7 kilowatt solar array on my own farm and quickly saw the financial benefits in terms of a return on the investment. In November of 2017, I led a campaign to raise funds to build a 720 panel, 200 kilowatt solar array at Mays High School with the support of the Sedgwick County Cooperative. The campaign has raised over $200,000, and on June 11th, 2019, Markhorst of King Solar threw the switch, turning on the largest solar array on any school in the Midwest. In its first year of operation, it has saved the district over $32,000 for an 8% return on the investment. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the history of computing, this is the slide rule, which was used extensively until the introduction of calculators in the early 80s. The introduction of the calculator was devastating to the slide rule industry, as their share of the market plunged and was quickly replaced by cheaper, more efficient means of calculating. I would make the electrical distribution system and the request by Evergy to change the rate structure analogous to the slide rule companies. Evergy for decades has had an absolute monopoly on energy production and distribution in the state of Kansas. They have had the market cornered on the production and sale of slide rules. Now that solar has become cost effective, people are looking to buy new calculators. Evergy wishes to not only prevent people from making their own calculators, they want them to buy their own calculators, as shown by their solar subscription program that is continuously flooding my Facebook feed. As a teacher, I am keenly aware of kids and how they perceive the world around them and the reputation that goes with them when they are from Kansas. They are still often faced with the stigma of wheat fields and Dorothy and Kansas being stuck in the age of slide rules. From my experience with the success of the May Solar Initiative and seeing the overwhelming support of students, alumni, parents, and businesses, the decision you face tonight is much bigger than a rate increase on a very small percentage of Evergy customers. Do you want to allow a rate structure that will greatly curtail the investment of individuals in rooftop solar systems to in effect support the continued production of slide rules at the expense of better and more efficient calculators? In a state that has the same solar potential as Florida does, in a state that is trying to retain its best and brightest graduates. I'm not saying that Evergy shouldn't be allowed to make a profit. I'm not saying I shouldn't have to pay to support the electrical grid because I rely on that grid. What I'm asking is that we use this opportunity to change the discussion to a comprehensive energy plan that will allow us to shift from the production of slide rules to a future where the youth are proud to say that they are from Kansas, a state that is a leader in renewable energy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Rick Budin, and he will be followed by Wayne Hearson. Mr. Budin?
Thank you. I'm Rick Budden, St. Mary's, Kansas, and thank you, members of the Kansas Corporation Commission, for the opportunity to address you on this issue opposing the proposals. In 2017, my wife Diane and I, who are both retired, decided to investigate purchasing solar panels. After getting information from SunSource Company, we decided to invest in solar. Our main reason was to use less fossil fuel energy and to help fight climate change. We also hope to cut down on our energy bills, but realistically, we would be in our 80s or 90s before we would recover, for our system would pay for itself. Our system was installed and running by April of 2018. In October, we were informed that Westar, now Evergy, was going to add a demand charge and energy charge to solar customers. In 2018, we were grandfathered in with others, so we no longer had to pay the demand and energy charges as a result of negotiations between Kansas legislature and Evergy. In April 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that residential producers could not be singled out to pay extra energy charges not paid by other customers. Yet here it is, Evergy is proposing to do an end run on the Constitution with a new fee. In our case, we would pay almost $30 a month for creating our own power, even if we use no power from Evergy. If this plan is accepted but found to be unconstitutional, their alternative is a poison pill fee, imposing a $35 monthly charge on all customers. In my opinion, they're trying to force the KCC to choose between charging residential energy producers a special fee, charging all customers a special fee. However, the $35 fee would only be charged if customer bills is under $35. To me, that says that Evergy's poison pill would be borne mainly by residential solar producers and low-income earners. Again, this is imposing a fee on residential producers. Residential producers make up less than 1% of Evergy's customers, yet the company continues to try to stick with unnecessary fees while they brag about their company's progress in the field of renewable energy. Meanwhile, they do all they can to discourage individual efforts to try to be responsible creators and users of alternative energy production. Their actions are having a depressing effect on solar installation companies in Kansas at a time when our climate problems require action. The merger that created Evergy was allowed because of assurances that would be a benefit to the customers and consumers of energy in Kansas and Missouri. We still have the second highest energy rates among Kansas and the 4 states that border it. We asked KCC to protect Kansas residential solar producers and reject these attempts to burden us with onerous and illegal fees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Wayne Hearson, and he'll be followed by Reed Nelson. Mr. Hearson?
Thank you, members of the commission, committee members, and commissioners. My name is Wayne Hearson. I live in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm a certified energy energy engineer for a major grocery store chain. I have been listening tonight, and there's been so many good points made that I'm just going to kind of recap on a few things that have kind of crossed my mind in the last several weeks thinking about this process. First off, I will just say that going solar was not a decision of anything other than just wanting to do the right thing by my current grandchildren and the grandchildren that follow them and the great grandchildren that follow them. I want to do everything I possibly can to leave them an earth that they can have picnics in the park and play with their children. You know, I think it's just a responsible thing to do. I agree also with Mark that talked a lot earlier in the thing that even though I have installed a solar generation system, I have a responsibility as well to help support the grid. I believe that because I'll never be totally away from the grid. I will always rely upon it in some way or another, whether that be during a snowstorm after my battery backup has went down, and now I'm relying on the grid when it does come back up, because I'll have no storage and I'll have no sun. So I will eventually rely on that grid. So my third point being that the $3 charge is just not a correct thing, because according to Evergy's own website, and this is a direct quote from their website, and I quote, "The costs customers should pay reflect the cost to serve them. It's important customers with private generation are not being subsidized by customers who don't have private generation." So on my electricity bill, every month I pay a basic service fee, and I pay a transmission fee. And by their own definitions, the transmission fee is a flat fee that covers for the costs associated with providing that electricity. So I believe it's one or the other. Either you, I would just prefer that we leave the fees as they are structured for everybody, and let's just move forward from that point. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Reed Nelson. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, hi. Thank you. KCC Commissioners, my name is Reed Nelson, and I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I work in Topeka and have for the last 25 or 30 years. I'm an appellate lawyer. I practice regularly in front of the Kansas Supreme Court and the Kansas Court of Appeals. I read their opinions day in, day out. I apply those to my own cases. I oppose the Evergy proposals. The first one really surprised me, the $3 per kilowatt for solar. The Kansas Supreme Court, in their opinion, seemed to be extremely clear to me that solar cannot be discriminated against. And then when I read the first proposal of Evergy, that the rate would apply to all residences, but the charge would only apply to solar, that appears to be a very transparent way around the court opinion as I read it. It looks to me like it's in direct violation, honestly, of the court opinion. Usually when the Kansas Supreme Court directs what a result will be in a case, and then that, I usually see it go back to a trial judge. Trial judges comply with the letter of the court's ruling. And I would highly suggest, if you haven't done it already, you send this to your general counsel. I would have to think that they would say that that first proposal is a non-starter. And it also leads one to the idea of objectivity. I think that you need objective advice on this. That gets me to the $35 minimum fee. When I read the expert testimony of Evergy, I did not see the benefits of the solar in there. And yet when I get on the internet and I look at various studies, I glanced at 10 or 12, they have benefit the value of solar in there, and usually it's in bar graphs, including it reduces wear and tear on transmission lines, I guess. It reduces needed capacity. Anyway, they're given credit for the value of solar. So I guess what I would say is you need an objective study by a third party and not Evergy of what is the true value of solar. I don't see a hurry in this. The penetration of solar is very small right now, less than 1%. And I don't think these become issues of concern until the penetration is quite a lot greater than that. There is no harm in deferring this and getting an objective third-party study. And obviously that $35.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Ava Zurich.
Hello, thank you. My name is Eva Zurich and I'm from Manhattan. I am owner of 2.5 kilowatt capacity solar system on my rooftop. And as a result, I buy fewer kilowatt hours from Evergy. Let me make an analogy to the proposed grid access fee. Imagine a grocery store when 1% of the customers start to buy less groceries. Some go on a diet, some just eat less naturally, and some grow their own food. These customers still buy groceries, but fewer than average. Yet the store's operational cost is the same regardless of how many groceries individual customers buy. With the grocery store, will the grocery store increase the price for all customers, or are they going to charge the less buying customers large entrance fee? It would be unthinkable given the small portion of the dieting customer base. We, the solar customers, are such insignificant minority. However, we do differ from the less buying population in one aspect. We sell our excess energy back to the grid, and arguably we should pay for the grid access. And here are my numbers. This past 12 months, I sold 1,100 kilowatt hour of energy for the total price of $124. With $3 free structure, I calculated I would sell it for a total of $34, which translates to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. If Evergy implements the real fee of $6.5 per kilowatt of installation as suggested further in the proposal, I would not only give them this energy for free, I would have to pay additional $70 for the privilege to do so. That is simply wrong. The energy my solar system provides comes from my own investment. I bear the repair cost, I clean the panels from snow and dirt, and I do so without any assistance of the utility company. Moreover, it is installed on my property. No taxpayer had to buy the land and keep employees around to maintain it and repair it. No good land has been wasted or sprayed by costly and harmful pesticides. My produced energy not entering the grid is simply mine. And if Evergy wants to charge me for it, what about my neighbor who goes on 3 months vacation out of the country every year? Should he be paying for using less as well? Lastly, an independent consulting firm, one that has no financial ties and obligation to Evergy, would bring much needed objective assessment to the argument of freeloaders. The last legal challenge was costly, and it is likely to be repeated as the arguments have stayed on the same course. And that's pretty much all I have to add, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is H. Swank.
Yes. My first name was dropped at some point. I'm Clyde H. Swanky. I live here in Topeka. We made a $40,000 investment in an 8 kilowatt solar array in our backyard here in Topeka. We did this primarily to charge our electric vehicles with clean, pollution-free electricity. Evergy charges us the peak rate for using our own solar generated power during the peak period. Customers are not eligible for the off-peak nighttime EV charging rate. I received our electric bill today, and Evergy is continuing to charge us the illegal peak usage rate. I have friends with solar panels in 2 other states that are paid a premium by their utility for their peak period generation instead of being fined for it. They also are credited for any unused kilowatt hours at the end of the month. Customer electricity generation does not cost Evergy loss of revenue. It produces profit for them. You can refer to multiple independent studies to validate this. Please don't be duped again as the previous KCC commission was by approving another illegal rate structure based on the largely unsupported random data from Evergy's hired spin doctor. Notice how many different utilities the bits of data were assembled from. Where's the data showing the multiple benefits to Evergy and all of its customers? It reads very much like the political campaign ads your mailbox has recently been filled with. Reject both Evergy proposals and order the illegal charges to be refunded to DG customers. Make Evergy understand that attempting to kill privately owned solar panels with a phony illegal rate structures is not in anyone's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Margaret Toes.
Hello, my name is Margaret Taves, and I live in North Newton, Kansas. We installed solar panels on our roof in July of 2019 for the purpose of trying to do our part to reduce our carbon footprint. Many people have spoken tonight in more clearly than I will. So I'm going to drop one of my points and just say my first point. I believe we should request a third-party rate study. The expert witness testimony of Dr. Faruqi was presented on behalf of Evergy. We join with lawmakers and organizations who are requesting a third-party independent rate study to see what is really called for in terms of rate structure here in Kansas with Evergy. It is only fair to assess the actual cost to all customers before increasing rates and to have this assessment made by an independent third party. My second point is this: we need more techniques to meet energy needs, not fewer. Do not shut down solar rooftop in Kansas, one of the sunniest states in the country. From reading your expert witness testimony, it does sound complicated to accommodate the two-way interaction of drawing power and returning power to Evergy's grid, but Evergy has the expertise to solve these issues efficiently if it chooses. I don't know what solutions will be best in a future climate change scenario, and neither does Evergy. Decentralized, distributed power generation can and should be part of current and future solutions. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Christina Amarin.
I'm here.
Please
Hi,
go ahead.
I'm Christina Amrine from Manhattan, Kansas. I've had solar power for several years. The reason I have solar power is I'm a teacher, and I used to work with a teacher who bragged every December about her husband, who worked at Westar, now Evergy, received a $10,000 bonus. And that irritated me because I was noticing that every few years my rates were increasing. I didn't want my only option to be to pay to a company that gives bonuses to employees. So I got my solar panels. I heard several people talk about their bills. I also pay $14.50 a month for the privilege of having Evergy, and I appreciate that, and I have no problem with that. But I also overproduce, not on purpose, and my bills are usually around $10 a month. So this really would affect me, and it would not make my investment cost effective. And it also takes away my choice, which as Americans, our choices are very important. And so I ask that the commission does not accept Evergy's request, and that they do an independent study so that those of us who have invested it, those of us that care about clean energy, and those of us that just want to be able to provide for ourselves are able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Adam Pounds.
Hello. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, my name is Adam Pounds. I live in South Hutchinson, Kansas, and I'm an Evergy customer with solar panels on my roof. I speak before you today in opposition of the proposed rate changes for 3 reasons. My first point of opposition is in the idea that solar energy is solely a burden to the utility. I will grant that utilities do provide a service to customers with solar generating capacity by the means of receiving excess energy at certain points of the day and year, even when that energy is not optimally desired. However, the idea that there are not times throughout the day and year when the utility is not more than happy to utilize my excess energy to supply its customers down the line is patently false. I believe the KCC should reject the proposed rate for one that takes into account the benefit that the utility provides to folks with solar, but also the benefit that solar receives, the benefit that the utility receives as a result. Unfortunately, this rate as proposed is not fair nor equitable, which leads me to my second point of opposition. The rate structure in and of itself is discriminatory. By basing the fee on my DC capacity, the utility is discriminating against me based on the orientation and pitch of my roof. I have a relatively low slope roof that is not optimal for solar production. As a result, I've added extra panels, increasing my DC capacity in order to produce the exact same amount of AC energy as my next door neighbor, whose roof pitch is more suitable to solar. As a result, I will be forced to pay more than my neighbor for the exact same amount of energy that is being produced, all because I was unlucky enough to have a non-optimal roof. This is why I must demand that the fee be levied on the AC output capacity of a customer's inverter. This is the only portion of the solar that interacts in any way with the utility grid. It only makes sense to use the fee that is based on the output capacity, not by discriminating against people based on the orientation and pitch of their roof. My final point of opposition is in the proposed cost per kilowatt. $3 per kilowatt of generating capacity is hugely excessive. A fairer and more equitable rate would be closer to $1 per kilowatt of AC output capacity. I remind you that the goal of this rate change is to make sure solar producers are not getting a free ride on the backs of other utility customers. It should not be used as a measure to deter solar entirely. The idea that many solar customers will have a bill as high as $75 per month, yet produce 100% of their own energy is outrageous. Please keep in mind that this will impact not only new solar, but also customers who have already purchased solar and who are now being asked to triple or quadruple their monthly payments. It is not fair nor equitable. As I conclude my remarks to the commission, I simply urge you to consider solar not as a burden to be stifled, but as an opportunity to bring our energy infrastructure into the 21st century. And I rise to remind you that the mission of the Energy Division of the KCC is to promote energy conservation and efficiency in Kansas. There's no better way to do this than to reject the proposed rate structure. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker on our list is Sarah Mott. Is Sarah with us? Sarah Mott. Okay, we'll move down the line to John Myjack.
Hello, this is John Myjack. I'm from Leavenworth, Kansas, and I'm an Evergy customer with no installed solar, so kind of an independent observer here. So while the greenness and cost of solar panels and other renewable energy is often lower than it really needs to be practical, such as including hazardous materials, Chinese production of solar panels leading to unregulated pollution, and in some cases are government subsidized, which indirectly charges all of us. I'm not really here to talk about that. I have a few points about the proposed solutions. The first is that power use is not really a good way to judge the environmental friendliness of a person or company because, well, big businesses need a larger space and may be overall more efficient, even while using more power. Or someone with a large family might need a large house. And neither of these plans really makes much sense. I read the proposed rule changes as applying not just to solar, but to any installed capacity, whether it was home generator, wind, geothermal, or anything. I'm not quite sure if that's right, but no matter what you have installed at home, charging people for having renewable energy or generators is silly because it's basically penalizing people for being prepared. If there were a flat fee for connecting to the grid to feed power back into it, that would make sense if it needed extra equipment, but only if you need extra equipment to actually feed into the grid. Otherwise, the fee is looking quite excessive and superfluous. The $35 minimum also doesn't make much sense because it penalizes someone with low bills, as others have said here before. And I don't really approve of minimums as a matter of principle because they don't really conform to reality and they often price people out of lower cost items because they hike all the prices upwards. Many times my own bills have been less than $35 in a month, even in the summer, but especially when I don't need air conditioning running all the time. So in short, I believe in charging people fairly for what they use rather than arbitrarily setting prices. So neither of these plans really looks like a good one, though I'm sure there can be a good solution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Austin St. John.
Thank you. My name is Austin St. John. I live in the city of Marysville, and I come here representing myself and as the city administrator of Marysville. I'm also a former administrator of an electric utility, and I want to start off by saying that charging somebody for having capacity is a ridiculous premise. If I were to, as an administrator of my utility, suggest that somebody producing their own electricity get charged for that, I wouldn't last as long as I did. But the idea to discourage producing via solar is highly irregular to what we see going around the state. You see West Evergy themselves installing massive wind farms and all that stuff, and then they turn around and say, no, you can't do that, or we're going to charge you for that. It's ridiculous unto itself. Excuse me. If we really want to say that the state of Kansas is encouraging people to be environmental and moving forward with this the whole idea of reducing our use of fossil fuels, we should allow people to be incentivized to install these solar facilities. It not only benefits the people using Evergy's electricity, it benefits the person installing the solar by, one, reducing their need for capacity at Evergy's level. As the administrator of the electric utility, we were always looking to see if we needed to up our facilities because of increased usage, even with the environmental efficiencies that were coming about, the LEDs, the ever conscious efforts of our citizens. We always looked, hey, more people were coming in, more electricity. How are we going to increase our capacity? Individuals increasing their own capacity helps the people as a whole. So this idea of charging is ridiculous. They should be paying us for capacity. I've never once charged somebody for the capacity they were giving me. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hugh Wentz.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Hugh Wentz. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm an Evergy customer, but I also own my own solar panel design, sales, and installation company. Been in business 9 years. I've watched all these things happen, watched the demand charge come in place. And as far as I'm concerned, this is just Evergy's sneaky way to skate around the 1980 law, which was also approved by the Supreme Court this year. They should not even, there should be no demand charge at all right now. But since it has to go through your commission to be able to figure out what is to happen, I will say this first. There's three basic components to every power company's charges. One is a basic service charge to cover administrative costs, the salaries to individuals that work for them. Secondly, there's a grid cost. Now, the grid cost is actually pretty much the same whether you use 200 kilowatt hours of electricity per month or 2,000. It's really not much different. It covers the cost of the wires, the poles, the transformers. And that grid charge that's been part of one of the two bills is ridiculously high. I mean, it's way too high. It doesn't need to be either. It would be, if it's a $35 charge, it would be in the almost tens of millions every month. And I know it doesn't cost that much to keep the grid going. And the third part of every bill is the cost for the production of the energy usage. And so for solar panel customers that produce their own.
Up next, I've been waiting this whole time.
There should, hello?
Oh, sorry.
I didn't go more than 3 minutes. That should be it. Why you cut me off? This is not more than 3.
You're not cut off. Keep going, Mr. Wentz. We can hear you.
Okay. So the third part is electric usage charge. And of course, that's part of our normal bill, according to how much electricity we actually use. That should stay in the bill. The service charge is okay, but the grid charge is way too high. But I say toss out the two present Evergy prospective rate plans and come up with one that covers service charge, a reasonable grid charge, because we all use the grid, whether we're putting electricity in through solar panels, our own, or whether we.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Stancy March.
Yeah, I apologize to the last speaker. I felt like they should have been given a few extra seconds there. I didn't realize I was off mute, so my apologies for that. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you. My name is Stancy March. I was born and raised in Kansas. And like many Kansans, I was compelled almost 20 years ago for me by a better paying career to move out of state For me, that career was in solar energy. So I left the home of my birth and moved to a state that, while it did not necessarily provide any particular advantages for solar in the form of rebates or tax credits or the like, it did, much like Kansas, enjoy the overwhelming support of its citizens. The major utilities in my new state, in large part, recognized that support and left our industry alone, choosing not to put its heavy thumb on the scale of the free market, but instead taking a common sense approach by not overly burdening ratepayers who chose to have clean, renewable sources of energy installed on their private properties. Because of that common sense and fair-minded approach by that local utility in that state, I and thousands of others just like me were able to earn good, honest incomes while helping people to reduce the operating costs of their businesses and to lower the energy bills of their homes, making them more affordable to live in. In 2013, I started to hear that there was a small solar market that had begun to develop in parts of my home state of Kansas, and the timing worked well for me and my family, so we decided to move back to Kansas and take advantage of the new economic opportunities that were available here. I went to work, we bought a home, and settled into our new lives, happy to raise our children in the heart of America. Things were looking great for our family and great for the future of Kansas. In the 7 years since returning to Kansas, the solar industry has been under constant assault from Westar, now Evergy. This assault has been happening despite poll after poll after poll showing overwhelming support for solar energy but from Kansans, even when those polled are asked if they would be willing to pay more for solar, which we know now that they don't have to, unless Evergy is allowed to put their heavy thumb once again on the scale of the free market to their perceived advantage and to the detriment of not only solar energy users, but all ratepayers in Kansas. I implore Evergy to please stop wasting money on legal fees aimed at harming renewable sources of energy and use those resources to join the vast majority of Kansans by supporting solar. If you can't bring yourselves to do that, then we Kansans need to stand up and demand deregulation of the energy industry here in Kansas, just like they have done in Texas, giving ratepayers choice and injecting competition into the local utility market. Do Texans deserve more freedom and energy choice than Kansans? I don't think so. Maybe it's time to take a serious look at deregulation. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Jane Burns.
Thank you. Thank you so much, KCC, for listening to this wonderful parade of comments. When I had solar panels installed on my little house almost 5 years ago, I thought I was doing a win-win-win, helping Westar, helping the planet, and helping myself, a senior citizen. Westar, because my energy contribution saved building more power plants for peak energy, and because the sun power helped reduce their carbon emissions. The planet, because duh, the sun shines 200 days a year here. Why not use the sun instead of digging up fossil fuel, transporting it here, burning it here, and disturbing the air? And well, Kansas uses wind so well, and all those wind turbines are so costly. Why not sun? And then myself, because I was preparing to live on a fixed income, I thought I was settling into the population curve. You know, Wichita and Kansas, I forgot to say I'm from Wichita, will have about a fourth, 1 out of 4 of its residents over the age of 65 in just a couple of years. I didn't want to forego food to stay within my Social Security income. The thing is, it's not like I'm stealing anything. I sell my excess energy to Evergy. And when there's plenty of sun, I'm happy to share it with other Kansans and with Evergy. And I think I'm helping to conserve energy. I'm a conservative conservationist. In the winter, my thermostat is 62 during the day and 55 at night. And if these costs continue to escalate, little pathetic me, I'm going to have to be, you know, 55 during the day and 40 during the night. I want to help Westar and Evergy, and I want to help the planet, and I want to help myself. I just think it's inappropriate to waste the sun. I'm proud that Evergy harvests wind powers so well now, and I hope Evergy makes a good win-win, economically effective business plan around solar. I urge Kansas to prepare more wisely for its future, for our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and to improve incentives for solar energy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Tim Emerson. Tim, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, Evergy has a requirement by law to meet certain renewable energy by 2030. Evergy is incorporating and utilizing home residential solar panel kilowatt production for their mandated numbers. When us, the homeowners, have an issue with the panel and inverters, Evergy does not pay for new panel or inverter cost, homeowner does. Evergy is performing a monopoly market. It faces no competition as the seller of goods with no substitute. It enjoys the power of setting the price of goods, a single seller, price market monopoly. Homeowners are their own power companies, and Evergy does not want to allow this monopoly or racketeering. Which one is it? Kansas also has one of the worst renewable incentives in the nation. If you look on the database of state incentives for renewable and efficient desire webpage, you can view all the states. Why other states encourage home renewable energy, Evergy does not. Westar and Evergy was able to pay and lobby state Congress to change the net metering from yearly to monthly. And so if the homeowners, if a homeowner has to produce, if a homeowner produces more kilowatts per month, like some other people have mentioned, Evergy is getting this free kilowatts now, and they sell it, and they're making a profit off us. And Evergy never had to pay for that extra kilowatt that we were actually paid for. This is another form of racketeering. And also, Westar and Evergy refuses to disclose how much they give to political candidates. And Evergy is producing this, promoting this solar subscription, but they would not disclose on how many kilowatts they have. So it'd be interesting to know and find out how many kilowatt panels Evergy says they have and disclose that, but they won't. And several cities ban windmills, so solar's our only other option. But like what several other people mentioned, if I have a 4 kilowatt system, optimally, if it was working 100%, I would only still produce like 3.7 to 3.5 kilowatt production, but you want to charge me $3 for the 4 kilowatt system. And most of the time I only produce like 3 kilowatts at 100% because of what the one guy mentioned about the roof angle. And then Evergy is going against the grandfathering laws, which Westar implemented several years ago. And Evergy will not disclose how many DG customers they have.
Thank you for your comment. Next up is John Nicholas.
Hello, I am John Nicholas. I'm a resident of Derby, Kansas, and I've practiced as a home energy auditor and a HERS rater for the last 10 years. My testimony at this hearing is based on my experience in working in the homes of approximately 1,000 Kansas households during my career. While I primarily work in South Central Kansas, I have also provided services from Anderson County to Bourbon County on the east, to Seward, Finney, and Stanton counties on the west, and north to Clay, Riley, and Pottawatomie counties. Since the termination of the Efficiency Kansas program The energy audit market has divided into two equal motivations. Those families wishing to fix a specific problem, usually a comfort issue, or are curious about how to decrease their energy consumption, and those families seriously considering investing in multiple thousands of dollars in solar generation. Today, I'm addressing the issues facing by the households considering solar generation option. The process of decision-making involves three questions. How many solar panels do I really need? Can I make cost-effective improvement to reduce energy usage to pay for one or more solar panels? And how will my investment be recognized and honored by my utility and my neighbors? The financial benefit to the homeowner is obvious. The vast majority of these households seriously considering on-site solar generation are also serious about doing solar as one way they are choosing to fight climate change. The benefit to the utility is twofold. Increased availability of kilowatt hours during peak cooling usage times without increased investment by the utility, and decreased need for long distance transmission lines across many miles of rural areas or in concentrated population areas such as 67214 recently in Wichita. These costs are paid by the utility directly or more probably by a transmission entity that increases the cost of remotely generated power that must be delivered to the population centers. The real choice for the Corporation Commission is to continue the past practices of former commissioners of 20th century practices, protecting traditional power generation sources and not considering any advantages to the ratepayers, specifically decreased investment by the utility in generation and transmission line costs. I have reduced my bills by 39% over the last 10 years. TAD rooftop solar would cost me a lot of money, about $8,000 a year, that if I were to move 1.5 miles east, I could avoid. That is a discriminatory charge.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Anthony Schmidt.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm speaking in support of the clean energy project, and I am with lawmakers and organizations who are requesting a third-party rate study. But I really want to commend everybody that's been speaking tonight. I have learned so much. I am planning to build a home with solar energy, a smaller home, because I'm done raising my children. Oh, by the way, I'm Tony Schmidt, and I grew up in Hayes, and I live in Lawrence, and I am the state coordinator for Citizens Climate Lobby. And I heard about my opportunity to speak. I wanted to maybe address you all from a sort of a moral standpoint, and along the lines of what I go around the state speaking about. And, you know, that is the issue of climate change and how we have recently found how rapidly we're melting our ice caps, and it's happening faster than we expected. And how in Kansas, in the year 2050, we're probably going to have killer heat, something along the lines of 50 to 100 days over 100 degrees. This is according to the IPCC. And 25 to 50 days above 105 degrees, and 1 to 10 days over 105 degrees, off the charts. So, you know, this is going to have a very negative effect on life in Kansas and the ability of farmers to grow food and the ability of people to stay healthy. And here we have people that are actually trying to take some kind of action about this imminent problem, and they're being discouraged. And I just can't see anything right about that. You know, when we talk about the year 2070, the entire equator, the countries that are on the equator, are going to be uninhabitable. And what's going to happen to those people? Where are they going to go if we don't start doing the things we need to do now and make this conversion to solar? Anything that discourages solar, I think, is morally wrong. And I thank you very much for listening to my few points.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Timothy Shipman.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Timothy Shipman. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. I'm the CEO of Shine Solar Energy, Inc. I would like to share with you that I employ 22 women and men in total from Kansas and other areas. I want to start out with some real numbers. Actually, let me say I am in opposition to the Westar Evergy rate plan suggestions. The $3 per kilowatt of DC should be ruled unacceptable. It's absolutely discriminatory. Also, the $35 minimum monthly fee, once again, while it will apply to everyone, 35 times 0 still only applies to Solar G practices. That kind of end round just shouldn't be considered by this panel, and I would hope that you would follow that suit. I want to start with real numbers for you. As of December 31st, 2019, there were 1,124,549 homes in the state of Kansas. Of that, 1,263 have their own solar generation systems. That's that 1% that everyone keeps talking about tonight. With that, the proposal, the Dr. Farkey from the presentation before the Kansas Supreme Court labeled 1,263 as economic free riders. I would like to share with you what that economic free ride is. So if we take $63.13 per year and apply that as the transmission cost for the average Kansas home that's using 20 to 25 kilowatts. You've heard from many people tonight that they're not using 20 to 25 kilowatts, but the average Kansas home is using about 20 to 25 kilowatts of energy per month. The transmission fee alone in Dr. Farkey's testimony is 0.3 cents. That's the cost for using a grid. So if we look at $3 per kilowatt generation of DC, that's roughly going to equate out to about $46 to $48 for all of my clients in Kansas every month. If we go to the minimum $35 fee, that's going to come up to $20.50 per month above the already $14.50 a month. That's for customer service, web monitoring, and meter reading, et cetera. The administrative costs of having an account with Evergy. The real cost is 7 cents per month. Are we going to allow Evergy to go from 7 cents per month, real cost on 20 to 25 kilowatts per month of transmission, to $20.50 profit? Is that what we're talking about? That's the real number in what we're talking. This is a discriminatory practice. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Jose Mateos.
Hello, my name is Jose Mateos. I live in Paola, Kansas. I'm 38 years old. I have a couple kids. First off, I want to start by saying everyone's had really good points. Learned a lot, and appreciate everyone coming out, video chatting tonight. So I oppose both the bills. I own solar panels. I feel they're both discriminatory against anyone who owns solar panels. I think it's pretty obvious the reasons. You've been listening to it for the last couple hours. Obviously, the first one, a charge per kilowatt hour, only solar. And actually, I don't know if that applies to wind generation and other forms of renewable energy. But either way, we're the only ones getting charged that. that fee. The second bill, $35. The second proposal is $35 for every single person in Kansas. I feel that's discriminatory in a way that's disproportional to low income, older people, and solar owners. I put my system in 2015, 5 years ago. I didn't do it to make a bunch of money or to, you know, I did it because I have kids. I wanted to, you know, show them that I care about the environment and I want to make the world a better place. I didn't want to go on and on about that, but anyhow, you know, the demand charges were overruled. They were deemed as discriminatory, and that's the whole reason they were overruled. This is obviously discriminatory. You know, so again, I oppose both these bills, and I mean, if anything, I feel that I'm helping the electric company during peak hours by producing the energy. And then on top of that, during the day, you know, I overproduced last month. I got paid like $7 for what I overproduced when they sold it to my neighbor or the retirement home down the street for, you know, 6 times that. So it's just something I feel strongly about. And that's the reason I sit on here for a couple hours just waiting, playing with my kids and waiting for my turn. So the bill promotes waste. It penalizes us for taking the initiative to actually go solar and spend the money up front because it's not cheap. And it was even more expensive 5 years ago. It's not like my return on investment is 2 years and I'm just banking money this whole time. It's a ROI of, you know, anywhere from 10 to 15 years most of the time. So all depending on the size of the system and where you're at. But yeah, that's all I really have. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Gary Leindecker, and he will be followed by Craig York. So Mr. Leindecker, are you ready?
Oh, unmute, I did. Ah, there I am. All right. My name is Gary Leindecker, and I'm proud to live near the tiny town of Gossel. I'm an Evergy customer, but I'm not speaking as a ratepayer. I'm not a full-time environmentalist, but I do my best knowing that what any of us can do by ourselves makes little difference in the big picture. I'm not an engineer, but I'm aware of some of the engineering and financial challenges in generating and managing renewable energy resources. But today I'm speaking primarily as a grandfather and as a person who believes we must prioritize morality over money. And I'm not interested in arguing the details of this proposal. The overriding issue is climate change. When I was asked to speak today, I literally sobbed, knowing how hopeless it is that any words I will share will deter our collective greed or our mad march toward the destruction of civilization and the environment. It's not debatable that humans, primarily through burning fossil fuels, are causing catastrophic heating of the planet's air and water and destruction of its precious ecosystems. This isn't a hoax or small-term or long-range problem. It's Bill McKibben reminded us on Tuesday, time is the only thing we've just about run out of in the climate fight. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in its 2018 report made clear that we had only until 2030 to cut our CO2 emissions in half. This commission is bound by its mission statement, which is to serve the people of Kansas by regulating the state's energy infrastructure and oil and gas production to ensure public safety. But you will fail to serve the people of Kansas or to ensure public safety if you don't do everything possible to reverse climate change. Instead, we're considering Evergy's proposal for additional charges for customers who are adding renewable energy sources to the grid to the benefit of all of us. In effect, this proposal will be rewarding the fossil fuel producers, distributors, and the misguided leaders and shareholders in this industry who have invested for years in the life-killing fossil fuel-powered generation monstrosities. The lives they are taking by contributing to climate change are already visible, but a larger price will be paid by our children's and grandchildren's generations and by the least responsible and the least able to adapt. And the proposed alternative of increasing the basic charge of all customers is the exact opposite of what is moral. The effect would be felt hardest by those who are poorest, those who use the least electricity, and those least responsible for climate change. May we all consider the words of Jesus who said, "As you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." I suggest the commission send Evergy back to the drawing board to find solutions that determine how to pay for the needed grid management enhancements, how to retire fossil fuel power plants, to increase investments in renewable power generation, to adjust rates so that the largest and
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Mr. York.
Hi, I'm Craig York. I'm a retired physician from Topeka. Thanks to the KCC for the chance to speak. I've learned a lot tonight, and I had some things that I wanted to say, but they've already been said. So it's late, and I won't take much of your time. I will say that Evergy has claimed that conventional customers are subsidizing solar customers, but their analysis really has ignored solar's positive externalities, like climate resilience and carbon reduction. Solar's benefits for all of us, its health benefits, like fewer cases of asthma, fewer cases of emphysema, fewer cases of heavy metal exposure, are clear to me as a physician. And I'd hope they'd be clear to you as regulators and policymakers. Evergy's business model for decades has been to own and sell power. The more, the better. But now they have about 1,200 solar customers and 2019 revenue of about $5.1 billion. This moment of climate instability, this long emergency, if you will, can nudge us to re-examine that model. Maybe Evergy could rent our roofs for solar arrays. Maybe they could own the storage batteries that live in our basements. But surely we the citizens, we Evergy, we KCC can find our way to imagine ways to actually promote rather than suppress this new clean technology. So thanks for your attention, and good night.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is John Shilito.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I think I'm hearing a lot of recurring themes tonight, and a couple of recurring themes. It's clearly confusing to people why Evergy would offer two discriminatory pricing possibilities, one discriminating against solar owners, the second discriminating against low energy users as an alternative to an already illegal discriminatory practice. So offering two solutions equally illegal and discriminatory is confusing to me as to why that might be a possible solution. I agree that with global warming, you would hope that Evergy would take a leadership role in this, not be antagonistic to solar owners or any renewable energy owners. And it is somewhat unusual to ask Evergy for solutions when in fact they're a for-profit entity. As a for-profit entity, they're going to make proposals that are the most financial benefit for them. And I'm confused as to why solar panel owners have to pay more. If I put insulation in my attic 6 months ago, does that mean I have to pay more because my house is more energy efficient? I have a hybrid car. Does that mean Exxon should give me a surcharge for using less gasoline? This idea with Evergy is the same. Finally, this doesn't have to be resolved by Evergy or any of us as speakers. The way to resolve it is with a third-party rate study, an independently contracted group that will give a reasoned, unbiased opinion as to what should be done. Don't leave it to Evergy to decide. don't leave it to all of us to decide. Try and pick an independent third party. And by doing so, hopefully we'll get a fair and equitable solution for both. If Evergy truly believes that their solutions are good ones, then they should welcome this third party study, because the third party study will probably, if they really believe that their options are good ones, the third party study should support what Evergy is proposing. So if there's nothing to fear as far as the proposals from Evergy, let's get a third party rate study and let them make the decision rather than Evergy or the solar panel users. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Edmund Stansberry.
Hello. My name is Edmund Stansberry. I own and operate a budding solar company here in Lawrence, Kansas. And I'm a Evergy BG customer. Thanks to the KCC for the ability to speak and for everyone's comments. It's been really enlightening. I wanted to speak on this today because this rate change is quite concerning for a number of reasons. Folks choose solar for a lot of reasons: to save money, to be a positive force against climate change. Renewables help improve grid security, helps create jobs, and folks can feel like they're doing their part to transition to a green economy and environment. Here in Kansas, we're tied for the 8th best solar resource in the country. However, SEIA ranks us 44th in the nation for solar, and we only have about 40 solar companies. Most concerning is our projected growth over the next 5 years is ranked 49th. Missouri, however, is ranked 32nd in the country and is projected to add 331 megawatts worth more of solar over the next 5 years. My concern is that these rate changes will negatively affect Kansas as we move towards a green America. My apology if this question has already been asked before somewhere and I couldn't find it, but speaking of Missouri, I'm curious how Evergy sees the need to have demand charges while in Missouri, the same company has no charge and an annual net metering instead of a month-to-month. I'm curious how business is different here in Kansas as it is in Missouri. I also wonder, and again, sorry if this has already been answered somewhere, but will this solar fee apply to any Evergy-owned solar plants that they own? And do customers who opt for community solar projects that Evergy's put on, do they have to pay any kind of solar rate change themselves? And how does Evergy, whose billboards in Kansas City boast about powering the future, and they've got solar array in the background, plan to encourage solar growth with the current outlook that's basically the worst in the country? Thank you for everyone's time.
Thank you for your comments. Stephen Sherman, you're next up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Stephen Sherman, and I live in Scranton, Kansas. Actually, not in Scranton, but that's my post office. And I am not in, pardon me. I had a brain injury in 1989, and I'm 76. I hate to play the age card, but I'm speaking haltingly. But I purchased, well, so I'm a free state customer. I'm not I can't say, I can say Westar, but I can't say the new name. And I've noticed, or I have watched with concern that what was happening to the solar customers. And I don't want it to happen to us. We lived through the '66 tornado. And I saw this house when it was being built in 1979. And it had a full-size bulldozer parked on the roof. So I was ignorant, and I said I would trade painting the house every 5 years to mowing my roof every week or 2 weeks. And so it was built wrong. This is apparently the first house that was built underground in Kansas with this roof, and you have to insulate it from the earth. So I was amazed that when
Excuse me, Mr. Sherman, I don't know why you were cut off. You still have some time. We can't hear you. So let's add some time back to Mr. Sherman, please, like a minute. Linda, if you would, please. Thank you.
Okay. So in 1996, when electricity was 4 cents a kilowatt, $475, and I couldn't get the house above 65 degrees. So I went to space heaters. And so I got it down to less than 200 a month. And then now it has gone back up through rate increases. So I purchased $65,000 for 48 panels. And I know that I won't recover the cost, but my house, I'm going to give it to my daughter. And so that, okay. Or do I have more time or? I can't hear you. So
I believe the time has expired. Thank you for
Okay.
your comment.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. And if you would like to send your comments in writing, you can as well.
Our next speaker is Mr. Hastings, Matt Hastings.
Yeah. Hi. Hey, how's it going? My name's Matt Hastings. I'm from Heston, Kansas. I think there's been a lot of good points made tonight, so I'm not going to keep you guys because I know you probably have other things to do than listen to people. I do want to say this, though, that it seems to me that what Evergy's trying to do is unconstitutional. And the law clearly states it. So I would ask that Evergy actually try to hire an outside consultant to a third party, but it be on them, not on us as the utility users. The other thing is that I do feel like what they're doing is counterproductive to what everyone else is or here is trying to do, which is trying to produce green energy. With that, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is John Fields.
Hello. Sorry. I'm not a very good public speaker, so I'm going to read from what I wrote earlier. Okay. Hello, I'm here because I'm a Kansan who is concerned with what our world will look like when I'm an old man. The development of green technologies and alternate sources of energy is well behind where it should be at this point, given that it's estimated that we will run out of fossil fuels by 2060 if we continue to burn them at our current rate. It's imperative that we push energy providers to reduce the obstacles that stand in the way for proliferation of alternative energy sources like solar and wind. Solar is good for everyone, even utilities. Solar allows utility providers to avoid exorbitant short-term costs in terms of purchasing expensive peak power from other sources. And likewise, customer-sided solar generation allows utilities to spend less money, as will lessen the need to construct transmission and distribution infrastructure in the future. Solar prices have dropped by more than half over the last decade. This opens the technology up for people across different income brackets and helps to reduce the burden on lower income households by providing stability in pricing that's currently missing for most local utilities. Specific to this situation, Evergy is essentially rebranding fees that have already been ruled discriminatory by the Kansas Supreme Court. These proposed fees are similarly discriminatory and serve to penalize those who have already invested in solar technology and to discourage those who might in the future, as well as to foment resistance against solar among those who are being charged without using it. The point of these technologies is to push for more efficient energy usage that is friendlier to the future of the planet. Evergy's proposed plans move us into the opposite direction. I echo many here in Kansas in calling for a third party to ascertain whether a rate is needed and to help define what a fair usage rate would be. Kansans deserve access to energy sources that save money and help secure a better future for their children. These discriminatory fees would do the opposite. And I see the rest of the time.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Fields. Our next speaker is Bill Wood.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I am Bill Wood from Lawrence, Kansas, and I purchased my solar system in the spring of 2014. I looked at the Westar interconnection agreement and at the solar proposal from a local company here, and it looked like my solar system should pay for itself in roughly 13 years. So when I retire, my bills would be low. Westar created the interconnection agreement, and I accepted it as it was written. On July 1st, 2014, Westar changed the interconnection agreement, and I had no say in that change. They have since made changes to their solar rate policies in 2015 and 18, and now are offering more changes that are all punitive to customers who signed agreements in good faith with Westar. When I've had a home or car loan from a local lender, the agreement that we both signed is honored by both parties. The lender doesn't change the interest rate to a higher number after 5 years, so it's a better deal for them. The lender created the loan agreement and I accepted it, and we both honor the agreement. So I wonder why Evergy can change their agreements whenever they want to. This does not seem honest to me. Thank you for allowing me to share with you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Mary English.
Hello, I'm here. Thank you for having this for us. It's been really great listening to everybody. My name is Mary English. I live in Prairie Village, Kansas, suburb of Kansas City. I've worked in the energy conservation and generation industry for more than 14 years now as a consultant. I have no financial stake here, though. I want to make that clear. I serve on various committees in Kansas City in relation to sustainability, business, and equity. I'm here today as a concerned Kansas citizen. When I heard through the grapevine about this hearing, I signed up to voice opposition to Evergy's proposal of a minimum bill. Also, I want to voice astonishment at Evergy's continued opposition of making using solar energy easy. First, a minimum bill of $35, let alone $77, would be devastating on the general public. This proposal reflects a management that seems extraordinarily out of touch with regular customers, especially now while a pandemic rages and high unemployment. This would be an equivalent of a draconian regressive tax on the poor. Also, it begs the question, what happens if they can't pay due to their need to choose basic shelter or food? What systemic triggers are in place that will punish struggling households? Is this a moral decision? As a great man once said, a nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. As Evergy is integral to keeping our regional society up and running through providing a critical service, this sentence absolutely should apply to how they treat their customers as well. When will the working and outright poor stop being the ones taxed when there is so much surplus at the top? Secondly, as our planet is clearly stressed from an overdose of greenhouse gases, it sounds like they need to be reminded of what is on their own website. It says, quote, Evergy is committed to delivering clean, safe, reliable sources of energy today and well into the future. So we're embracing alternative energy sources to generate more power with less impact to our environment and adopting new technologies that let our customers manage their energy use in ways that work for them. Whether it's new ways to connect with us, electric vehicle charging stations, or the next innovation around the corner, we're dedicated to empowering a better future. Evergy's actions are clearly in opposition to their words, as they have already pushed back against net metering, which, if there was more, would encourage customers to manage their own energy use, wouldn't it? Perhaps in the fast-moving world, Evergy decided to take the well-worn path to generating more profits rather than seeing themselves as a pillar in the community. Our economic system favors the cheap buck, so this is not all on them. The system we are all working under can be very harsh. However, perhaps they could pause over these words from JFK in regards to the moon mission. We do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. I appeal to Evergy and the Kansas Corporation Commission to rise to the challenge of doing the right thing, even if it is harder to do so, because the quick, easy buck will surely lead to a dead end for the planet and humanity. Thank you again.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Derek Christensen.
Hi, I'm Derek Christensen from Olathe, Kansas, and I oppose both proposals by Evergy. Evergy claims that the grid access fee is not discriminatory because solar customers export power to Evergy. But as actual in-home battery storage options have become cheaper, it's possible for solar customers to use their own personal batteries as a storage solution, never needing to use Evergy as a battery. Other customers with solar panels may choose to use zero export inverters. A zero export inverter ensures that absolutely no power gets sent to a customer's from a customer's solar panel to the grid. To Evergy, these customers would be indistinguishable from a customer without solar panels. Hence, under a grid access fee plan, they would be paying fees for a service they aren't even using. If there are two Evergy customers, neither export power to the grid, but the solar customer is being charged a fee while the non-solar customer is not, that is blatant discrimination and illegal in Kansas. There is only one state, Arizona, that currently uses a grid access charge, and it is 93 cents per kilowatt. Evergy is asking for a $3 per kilowatt charge. How does Evergy justify being more than 3 times as expensive as the only other company that does this? I draw 2 possible conclusions. Either Evergy is massively inefficient, or they're trying to fleece their customers. It is possible that both are true. Evidence for this is strengthened when taking into account the second proposal, a $35 monthly minimum. No states with monthly minimums are as costly as the $35 minimum proposed by Evergy. All of them are less expensive. Again, I ask, why is Evergy's proposal a higher price than every other state? Dear Commission, Evergy has provided you with a false choice, either a $3 per kilowatt fee or a $35 minimum bill. You have a third choice, neither. Tell Evergy to take a hike. If they need the money, they can pull it from the dividends they are giving their shareholders, which is currently the largest in Evergy history, clearly growing their gross profit by 65% in 2018 and another 24% in 2019 were not enough. Instead, they decide to use their monopoly power to squeeze every penny out of their customers during a pandemic and amidst the highest rates of unemployment since the Great Recession. Please, please, please deny Evergy the request to charge more to customers that own solar panels. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next person on our list is Amanda Butterfield. Amanda?
Hi, good evening. Amanda Butterfield from Marietta, Kansas. We are opposed to both rates proposed by Evergy. We kind of have a different reason than most everybody else. We had power installed on our property in 2016. We had power poles and lines basically brought out to our property. We paid about $10,000 to have this opportunity from Evergy. We've lost power every year, increasingly so in the summer. This year alone, we have lost power 13 times since April. We have not had any major storms in the area during this time. We decided to take the fate of our house and our power and our appliances and anything electronic into our own hands. We started looking at alternative power sources. We decided on solar. However, we quickly learned that we are required to be on the grid, so we can't disconnect from Evergy. We also learned that the KCC also imposed limitations on net metering for our residential customers. So that's also favoring the utility company. So we are going to have to pay the $35 regardless of, in addition to the net metering fee. Now, like everybody else, I'm, you know, I don't consider myself a free rider, right? We're a DG customer. I'm paying, no, Evergy isn't paying me to put the solar panels in. We are paying for those solar panels. It doesn't appear that this is something that Evergy really cares about, is that, you know, what's happening to their customers, or if they're providing, you know, an alternative power source. All they care about doing is more money and making sure that they have a monopoly on the energy sources available to Kansans. I would hope that the Kansas, you know, the Kansas Corporation Commission would actually look at our neighbors, like somebody mentioned earlier. Missouri, they have a great, that's who's putting in ours. They were telling me what Missouri has available to them. Sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake by moving back to Kansas. But anyway, I hope you would, you know, take a look at this and take everybody's considerations into account. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Amanda.
At this time, if there is anybody who, Amanda is our last scheduled speaker. If there is anybody who is out there that did not sign up and wants to speak, we're just going to pause here for a few seconds and we will unmute you. Okay.
Raise their hand so that we can unmute.
Raise their hand?
Yeah, raise your hand so we can see you, if you would, please. Okay, it appears there is nobody out there. As a reminder for everyone, the public comment period will remain open through December 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. The evidentiary hearing on this matter is scheduled to begin in Topeka on December 16th, 2020 at 9 a.m. Due to the pandemic, the hearing may be conducted by Zoom. We're working through those technical issues. The commission must issue a decision by February 25th, 2021. This concludes our public hearing. I want to thank all of you for staying with us and participating in our first Zoom major public hearing. We appreciate your patience of being with us. So right now, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. We are adjourned. Everyone be well and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you.